There's a favorite coffee mug that I have that I got from our dad. On it is an inscription from Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined. And no one embraced that mantra more than my brother Jim. He was in many ways bigger than life. As a child growing up, he always had these natural leadership qualities. We grew up in the formative years up in the coal regions, up in the little town of Tamaqua, and he was always the leader of the pack, so to speak, up there. And then when we relocated down here, again, he was just the BMOC in the neighborhood. Bill, you can attest to that. When we lived up in Tamaqua, Jim collected turtles. Now he would take us for hikes and we'd go find some turtles. And if anybody found turtles at any point after that, instead of keeping them as a pet or releasing them into the wild, they would just naturally bring this to my brother as some sort of an offering. It was to pay homage. It was a sign of respect. This is the reason why a child at 8 years old had a collection of between 80 and 100 turtles. It was crazy. He also had no fear of snakes whatsoever, which is not a good thing. Fear is something that God places in us to protect us. But he had this little aura about him. When he was working towards his doctorate at the University of Memphis, he had to go out and collect cottonmouth moccasins, and for his to work towards his thesis, to study these. Now he went to the professor, and the professor was going to get him all of the permits and everything necessary to be able to go do this. And the Okefenokee Swamp, I think, is the location which was a good one for cottonmouth moccasins. So he told him, I'll take care of it. You're all set. You can go ahead and take care of these things. Now, as many people know, snakes really don't want to mess with people. They typically will try to go away. This is why a rattler rattles his tails. But you snake aficionados out there all know that the cottonmouth moccasin's a little bit different. They're actually aggressive towards men, and they'll try to take you on. So it's a ornery critter. But anyway, he had been driving all day and got out to the swamp, and it was late in the day. And he was really worried. I've driven all this distance. I've got to make this productive. So he went and he caught as many snakes as he could in the short time he had available to him, but he didn't want to take the time to bag them up and throw them in the trunk like he normally would. So he caught these, and he just opened the car door quick and tossed them in and closed the door. And he did this repeatedly, and they're in there. I think it would have made a good prequel, you know, Snakes in a Chrysler Newport to the Snakes. Well, sometime afterwards, a ranger comes over to him and asks him what he's doing. And he explains to him, I'm from the University of Memphis. I've come here to collect snakes, cottonmouth moccasins to study. And he looks at him, he just shakes his head. He goes, you've got to be kidding me. And he goes, well, the professor told me we had a permit. He goes, there's no permit. He says, every time he sends people over here telling him it's okay to come here, nobody has a permit, and I'm going to have to make an example out of you. This is it. So my brother's figuring he's going to get locked up. And so as the ranger's looking around and looks inside his car and sees the snakes, he quickly analyzes the situation and looks at him and he says, all right, I'm going to let you off with a warning this time. Because he didn't want to have to face and deal with those things. He says, I don't want to ever see you back here again. And he didn't. That was Jim. We all make a lot of choices in life. We can choose to sleep in the morning, or we can choose to get up and watch a beautiful sunrise that God has made for us. We can choose to get some exercise, or we can choose to play some video games and watch a little bit of television. We can choose to be aggravated by our work and things that normally would get us down. or we can choose to say, this is the job I have to do a good job with this. Just as we can be irritated by the health situations that hold us back, or if somebody asks us, how are you doing today, you say, phenomenal. That's the kind of life my brother led. Well, one of the most pivotal choices that he made happened back in August of 1980. At that time, he was attempting his biggest climb at the time. It was the north face of the Grand Tetons. And he went out there expecting to be able to summit in one day. They did bring some very modest provisions in the case that things would get laid over. And so they were climbing, and the day did get kind of late. And it was a little more difficult than they thought, so they bivouacked. They had a little rock shelf where they were at, and they fashioned out of some rope a hammock and tied into the side of the cliff. That's not for the meek. That night a storm came in, as they do, and they're unexpected. And the storm threw everything out it could. It was rain, it was sleet, it was snow, it was lightning. And he talks of being there bivouacked, and the lightning hits the mountain, and you see rocks flying past you the size of the furniture. And some of that electricity gets dissipated across the face. That's a little tough. And they only had maybe a little bit of gorp, some snacks just for one day's hike. They shared one sleeping bag. They had to take turns. And when they didn't show up 24 hours after they were supposed to, they sent a team out to go find them. They did locate them, but it actually took them 2 or 3 days to be able to get to them. And at that point, hypothermia and not eating has a great way to lose. It's not really a great way to lose weight, but it's a very effective way to lose weight. He lost about 36 pounds off of his very thin frame in those short couple of days. And they had to hike up a couple hundred feet to a point where they could, climb up a couple hundred feet to a point where they could traverse and descend down the other side where a helicopter could get him. And they did that. And he survived that. And it was an incredible ordeal. And for most people, they would gladly say, well, okay, I'm done with that. I never want to ever do that again. My mom was interviewed afterwards, and she said, he's always involved in these non-conventional things which make mothers age rapidly. Jim made a choice. And instead of calling it quits after that experience, he decided that he too wanted to help others. And he wanted to help rescue folks in a meaningful way. And over the course of his storied career, he was involved and participated in over 1,200 rescues. It was an incredible feat. He was a man of courage. Today we make a choice also. You know, we can talk about all the sadness, and certainly when I learned that he had passed, there was shock, there was denial. You just shook your head. It didn't make sense. This was a man who used to tell people that I am immortal until proven otherwise. But instead of focusing on those emotions today, it's a celebration of life. We're here to talk about the wonderful life that he led and all the lives that he impacted. My wife has this a remarkable quality that she's able to write down poetry at times when she's moved. And we were out in Colorado a couple weeks ago to be able to celebrate his life out there with a large crowd of people. And while we were out there, at one point we went for a little hike in the woods, close to where Jim and Rebecca lived. And when we got out there, we wanted to see the place where Jim was. And Nancy sat down and she wrote a poem which I want to share with you. There was a man who lived his life more fuller than any can know. He took each day and made it count. Not once did he take it slow. He lived to breathe, to climb, to go. Up high where few men go, adventure was his middle name, saving many a claim to fame, but claim he did not do it all. For that is not what he sought. His quest was for a life well lived, and Jimmy did that fine. So many lives are touched by yours. Your legacy and smile live on. Today we weep that we will see you no more. Our hearts so full of your presence, we smile and say, he's found his peak. And we know he will climb there too one day to join you on that mountaintop.
Friends of Jim, you are so many. We gather here in the shelter of God's love to support one another in what surely is our emptiness. Except we plan to honor and celebrate a life that is really so very special to us. And among all who would not see us spend these moments today in mourning is Jim himself. He who found smiling so easy would certainly frown if we treat him to be less than the joyous person that he continues to be. So we promise to think more thoughts grateful than grieving, because he continues to be a treasure and a blessing to us all. I remember being in high school and Jim was home from spring break. Got up, got to get ready for school. He gets to sleep in, of course. And I walked over to my mom's room to get the hairbrush. Yeah, I had hair back then. Room's dark, I don't need the lights. I'm half asleep. I'm walking through, and I notice laying along the foot of my mom's bed is a rope, full length of the queen-size bed. Walk over, and the rope moved. Okay, now the scientist in me is piqued. My curiosity is ready to go. And I'm looking at this thing. It's moving slightly. And I go down. It's not a rope. And I go and pick it up. It's Jim's black snake. So, not a big deal. I take it out of Mom's room to go across the hall to Jim's room. Timing couldn't be worse. Mom came right out of the kitchen at that moment, saw me leaving the room with this giant snake. Where did you get that? It was kind of a rhetorical question. I don't believe for a moment she thought I was giving the black snake a tour of the house at that hour. Before I could even open my mouth for the word, she was down the hall and took the snake out of my hands. Walked into Jim's room. I'm not passing this up, I'm following. Jim's asleep. Jim! I'm tired of these snakes getting out all over the house. And pointing the snake at his face. And Jim's like, oh, Mom, what? Jim! Yeah, well, okay, all right, I got him, Mom, I got him. And he takes the snake, opens up the covers, puts him in, closes the covers, and goes back to sleep. Jim! Okay, I'm up, I got him. All right, I'll get him in his cage. That was Jim. Let's take a moment. Let us pray. Lord God, creator of our world, assure us again in these moments of our reflection that our eyes have not seen, nor our ears heard, nor human imagination envisioned more than a particle of all there is to life. In the serenity of this place, help us catch at least a glimpse of delight beyond our human stress. I pray through Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
We have several poems coming up. The poems were all written by Detterlines in the past and all read by Detterline and family here in the future. The first, by Catherine Rader Day, Peace and Serenity atop Long's Peak in Colorado, which she wrote for Jim, and which Jim wrote at her memorial service. Today read by Greg Trees.
Peace and serenity atop Long's Peak in Colorado. On the mountaintop, feeling so close to my Creator, I paused to pay homage to those who influence, made me what I am today. I roll back the curtain of my life, traveling through point after turning point, from shattered childhood, teaching career and marriage, to the glory of childbirth. The bumpy uphill road challenged my faith, but the splendor of my children's achievements brought strength and cast away the times when no tears were left, to wash away the lines etched on my face and heart with grief and felt with grief. On the mountaintop, feeling so close to my Creator, I peeked around the curtain of tomorrow. 'Twas a moment of ecstatic awareness, such as I had never experienced. Truly an invitation into my walk of life, to bring out the best of me and mine, and face our mortality with dignity and grace.
The poem Death Life, written by my grandfather. This excerpt was one that my dad used in a lot of different memorial and funeral services. Read by Matthew Detterline.
Evening things that man has made will fall and die and rust and fade. But truth and honor, faith and love, implicit trust in God above, shall find endurance through the ages, inscribed on everlasting pages.
And finally, the poem Be Brave. This was Jim's all-time favorite poem. My grandfather wrote it, and after his ordeal on the Grand Teton, Jim always kept a small copy of it in his backpack with him wherever he went. Read for us by Scott Detterline.
And there's a little footnote here, just like you said, favorite of grandson, Dr. Jim Detterline, carried with him always, ever since it was a survival inspiration while waiting rescue after being trapped. Be brave in every phase of life, not only in the battle strife, not only when the crowd will cheer and all your friends are sure to hear. Be brave when standing all alone with no one to rely upon. Be brave in everything you do, not only to a chosen few. Of life's encounters that will raise applause and honor, pomp and praise. Be brave when you're misunderstood. Be brave and still pursue the good. Be brave in all you undertake. Be brave in every move you make. Not only when you can attain some bounty of material gain. Be brave regardless of the test. Be brave, and you may have the best. Be brave, and counting not the cost of minutes spent and moments lost. The path may not be smooth and clear. There may be things suggesting fear. Be brave, and with it all, be true, and blessings great will come to you. Be brave, not for a day, a year. Be brave for all of life, and hear the praises of the Captain True that presently will come to you. To hear the Master say, "Well done," is praise enough for everyone.
Our scripture reading this morning It's from Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. Everything has its time. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. Time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord. Amen. I returned my concentration to the climb and noticed a basketball-sized orb of St. Elmo's fire at the very top of the cracked system. The electric storm dropped towards me like the ball at midnight on New Year's, and there was nowhere for me to go. The ball came quickly to my position, hovered right in front of my face, and exploded with a loud boom and a flash of bright light. Amazingly, I did not fall. However, everything went black. I was blind. With no protection placed and 40 feet of vertical rock above my partner, I was in a precarious situation. I yelled down to Dwayne about my dilemma. Fortunately, Dwayne was uninjured by the lightning phenomena, and he very calmly guided me to down climb the face while blind. All right, put your left foot down about 6 inches. Move it over to the left about 1 inch. Weight it. Good. Now your right hand, slide that down about 1 foot. Each hold was worked out like this. My adrenaline rush kept my grip strong until I eventually reached the ledge. I sat down next to Dwayne, and I still had no sight whatsoever. What was I to do? I shared my despair with Dwayne. He simply responded, "Doc, you got to get your sight back, because I can't lead this pitch." This excerpt, taken from Jim's book, From Zero to Hero and Back, was an account of his first successful climb of Long's Peak. Yes, he did complete the climb after spending the night on a rock ledge without sleeping gear during a lightning storm. Through the dark hours, tied to a rock face, blind but his sight slowly restoring, Jim never would have guessed that someday he would make 428 ascents of this mountain, the most of any person throughout history. Jim didn't know it at the time that locally he would be known as Mr. Long's Peak, named after the tallest mountain in Rocky Mountain National Park. It didn't occur to him that he would have other encounters with lightning or be placed in other horrible, precarious situations. But all of this exemplifies the spirit of the man, his sense of adventure, and the career of an amazing individual who touched so many lives. Let's take a moment and look at some of the lives that he touched. I don't know how many people he's actually climbed with, Has to be hundreds. Many of those friends commented to me that one of the great joys they had in going out with